All right, let's talk about the man of the hour. Unfortunately, Russian President Vladimir Putin, the one-man psychodrama. Wherever this man goes, there's drama and destruction, and he refuses to let us ignore him. This man is doing everything he can to become president for life. And of course, when you've siphoned off as many rubles as Putin has, you can never be sure that your successor won't lock you up and take them all. For him, it's rule or die, and literally everything is potentially a conflict. Like this: Champanskaya, the Russian word for champagne. Last summer, Putin signed an order that only sparkling wines made in Russia could be called Champanskaya. Except the problem is that a sparkling wine may only technically be called champagne if it comes from the Champagne region of France. But Putin's order meant that imported French champagne could no longer be labeled as champagne in Russia, only as sparkling wine. The move kicked off a champagne war between Russia and France. Take that in for a minute. That's the level of crazy we're dealing with this guy. And that's just the tip of the Siberian iceberg. Putin has a long history of invasions, a history of poisoning his adversaries near and far, and a lengthy history of tyrannical, dictatorial behavior. But Putin was a level of dictator yesterday we haven't quite seen from him before. His hour-long television address was Stalin-esque. It was Hitler-esque. It was crazy-esque. More words come to mind: delusional and power-hungry. He sat there with minimal facial expressions and took us through his revisionist tour of Russian, Ukrainian, and Soviet history in an effort to prove that Ukraine shouldn't exist, using words similar to those used by Stalin about Poland in 1939. We know why Ukraine matters to Putin, a former KGB operative and loyal communist who wants his legacy to be piecing back together the Soviet Union. That's what he's after, folks. Putin calls Ukraine Little Russia. And to Putin, the collapse of the Soviet Union was, quote, the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the century. There are many inside of Ukraine, by the way, who might even agree with Putin. On Friday, there was a heated moment when a journalist punched a pro-Russian politician as they argued over Putin's aggression. And Putin believes that all Russian-speaking people should be part of Russia. End of story. Yep, it's true. Most Ukrainians do, in fact, speak Russian. It was not too long ago part of a Russian-speaking Soviet Union, after all. Remember that? But did you know that after America, the country that has the most English-speaking per population is India? So shockingly, the country once colonized by England has a whole lot of English speakers. So does that mean England is entitled to India? No, of course it doesn't. But that's a large and effective part of Putin's argument about bringing the Soviet countries back together as one. It was also Hitler's idea and his argument and his obsession, bringing German-speaking countries together. So there's a pattern here forming, folks, right? Delusional and dangerous. In 2008, Russia attacked Georgia, a former Soviet republic, which became an independent state 3 decades ago. Putin attempted to justify the invasion under the responsibility to protect. Does that sound familiar? Putin and Moscow backed rebel groups, and since then, those areas have remained separatist-controlled regions with Russian assistance. In December of 2011, Putin's popularity plummeted when the economy there was staggering. Fearing a popular revolt, Putin changed his tack. Rather than basing his political legitimacy and legacy on economic growth, he would base it on reviving nationalism and anti-Western sentiment. No surprise, and when we went after Crimea in 2014, fully invading eastern Ukraine went all in, and his poll numbers went back up, thanks to a show of Putin's strength. And now, after his handling of COVID, Putin's popularity rating started to fall again to its lowest level in 2 decades. It's crazy what some leaders will do when their poll numbers drop, isn't it? And so Putin's back at it, pun intended, backing anti-Kyiv Russian separatists in Ukraine. The difference this time, he now has deployed tens of thousands of troops across the Russian-Ukraine border, inside Ukraine. And make no mistake about it, this is an invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Another difference, this particular invasion has been years in the making. Putin's slow, obvious burn, make no mistake, he wants that land. He wants those resources. And he wants to stick it to America, to Western Europe, to NATO. He's given speeches about reunifying the countries that once made up the great Soviet Union. And you can be sure of this today, no country that ends in the letters I and A is safe. Putin will stop at nothing. Russia's foreign policy is simple. Fund separatist groups in foreign countries, then commit to peacekeeping missions. How sweet of Russia. By the way, invading under the guise of peacekeeping. Last time I checked, peace doesn't involve 200,000 troops rolling tanks, downing communications, and occupying a foreign land while threatening to start a war. Which brings us to this moment right now. Does Joe Biden have what it takes to deal with this moment? Because with oil reaching $100+ per barrel, now would be a really good time to crank up the Keystone Pipeline. How will he deal with these rising oil prices? He owes Americans an explanation. He didn't give us that one today. More than just Kamala telling us that Americans will, quote, incur some extra costs. Speaking of Kamala Harris, now would be a great time to secure our own border. It's starting to rain down sanctions, folks, on Putin, and it should. But those sanctions also have happened well before, should have happened well before this moment. Over a month ago, Senate Democrats, think about this for a second. A month ago, Senate Democrats actually blocked a bipartisan bill presented by Texas Senator Ted Cruz to sanction Putin's Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Biden was too concerned that such sanctions could damage relations with Germany, the very same Germany which just today, you guessed it, halted the Nord Stream 2 pipeline in response to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Typical Democrat short-sightedness, and here we are. For now, as we continue to drown Putin in headlines and global attention, Putin's happily drowning himself in Champanskaya, planning his next move with an eye on Kyiv. And then, some more.